My name is Natalie Pierce, and I'm 35 years old. Last year, I buried my father and watched my marriage crack open in the same season. Only one of those losses surprised me. Dad was my person, the kind of parent who could sit next to you in silence and still somehow say everything you needed. He built a manufacturing business from nothing, tiny shop, busted equipment, long nights, and turned it into something real. Sold it a few years before he got sick. Did everything right. Smart investments, careful planning, wills, trusts, all the boring paperwork no one wants to think about until it's too late. When he died, after estate taxes and the split with my older sister, I inherited $823,000. That number still looks fake when I write it down. My husband, Daniel, is 33. We'd been married 6 years. On paper, we were fine. He worked part-time as a bookkeeper, maybe 28 grand a year. I'm a mechanical engineer, around 94,000. From the beginning, we kept separate checking accounts, plus one joint account for the mortgage and shared bills. It wasn't romantic, but it worked. It kept the peace. When the inheritance cleared, I opened a separate investment account at a different bank in my name only. I didn't sneak around about it. I showed Daniel the statements, the exact amount, everything. I'm not hiding this, I told him at the kitchen table, the paper still smelling like printer ink. Dad left it to me, but it's our safety net, emergency fund, long-term security. We don't touch it unless we really, really need to. Daniel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. His eyes were soft, voice low. Nat, I'm so sorry about your dad. He was incredible. He'd be glad you're taken care of. We'll be smart with it, okay? We'll only use it if absolutely necessary. For about 3 weeks, that's exactly how it went. Then the comments started. It was a random Tuesday morning. We were having coffee, pale sunlight coming through the blinds, the kind of quiet that used to feel comfortable. You know, Daniel said casually, scrolling on his phone, I was looking at some kitchen remodel ideas. Our cabinets look dated. We renovated 5 years ago, I said. Everything's still in great shape. Yeah, but imagine if we updated it again. New countertops, nicer appliances. We could use some of the inheritance, just like 30K. It'd all come back to us when we sell anyway. I laughed it off. The kitchen's fine, Dan. He dropped it, but a seed had been planted. A week later. Well, my car is getting old, he said as we drove home from the grocery store. I looked at his car in the rearview mirror, a 2019 Honda Accord, barely 40,000 miles on it. Your car is practically new, I said. Yeah, but if we traded up now, we'd get great value. And we have the money, Nat. Why shouldn't we enjoy it? Your dad would want us to enjoy it. That line, your dad would want, landed like a stone in my stomach. After that, the angles changed, but the destination stayed the same. I've been thinking about going back to school, he said one night, stretched out on the couch. Getting my CPA. I could quit work, focus on studying. The inheritance could support us for a while. Another day. You're burnt out. You should take a few months off work, travel, clear your head. We can use the money. That's what it's there for. Then, we should invest in rental properties. Use your inheritance as down payments. Let the money work for us. Every road led back to that account with my father's legacy in it. At first, I tried to reason with him. I want this to stay separate, I said one evening, stirring sauce on the stove. It's what Dad left me. It's security, not a lifestyle upgrade. Daniel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. But security for who, Nat? You or us? I should have paid more attention to the way he emphasized that word. Us. 2 months after the money hit my account, I made chicken parmesan for dinner. It was one of his favorites. Extra cheese, fresh basil, the works. I was trying to be normal, maybe to remind both of us that we had a life outside of this inheritance conversation. We ate mostly in silence. Halfway through the meal, Daniel set his fork down. His expression had changed. Harder, sharper, like he'd made a decision and was about to execute it. We need to talk about your inheritance, he said. Something in his tone made my chest tighten. Okay, I said slowly. What about it? I want to be added to the account. I stopped chewing. What? I should have access, full access. We're married, Natalie. What's yours is mine. What's mine is yours. That's literally what marriage means. That money is what Dad left me, I said quietly. He didn't leave it to us. He left it to me. You know about it. You know exactly how much is there. I'm not hiding anything. But I can't access it, he shot back. I can't transfer money. I can't make investment decisions. I have zero control. That's not a partnership. It's an inheritance, I said. It stays in my name. That's how it should be. His face went cold, almost unrecognizable. So you don't trust me with money? That's not what this is about. It's exactly what this is about. His voice rose, sharp and tight. You think I'm going to what? Blow it all? Steal it? I think, I said, choosing every word slowly, that this is separate. It's not marital funds. It's what Dad built and left for me. He let out a short, bitter laugh. Marital funds. That's rich. I stared at him. This man I'd married, shared a bed with, cried to, planned future kids with. The man who'd held my hand at my father's funeral. He leaned back in his chair, eyes hard. Here's how this is going to work, he said. Either you add me to that account, full access, equal control, or I'm leaving. The silence that followed was so loud, I could hear the refrigerator humming in the next room. You're giving me an ultimatum, I whispered. I'm telling you what I need to feel like an equal partner in this marriage, he snapped. I will not stay married to someone who doesn't trust me. By threatening to leave if I don't give you access to my dad's money, I said. Do you hear yourself, Daniel? He didn't flinch. You can spin it however you want. Add me to the account or this marriage is over. I looked at him, really looked, at the man sitting across from me, willing to burn down our entire life for a number on a statement he never earned. Then I heard my own voice say, very calmly, then leave. His eyes widened. What? You heard me, I said. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. If that's your ultimatum, leave. You don't mean that. I absolutely mean it. You want to end our marriage because I won't give you access to my dad's money? Fine. End it. You're calling my bluff, he said, almost incredulous. I'm taking your ultimatum seriously, I replied. There's a difference. His face twisted through a dozen emotions. Shock, anger, disbelief, wounded pride. You would seriously let me walk out over this? He demanded. You're the one threatening to walk out, I said. I'm just stepping out of your way. This is insane, he muttered, shoving his chair back so hard it scraped the floor. It's just money. If it's just money, I asked, why are you threatening to divorce me over it? He grabbed his keys and his phone. I'll go stay at my mom's, he said. Give you time to calm down and think about this rationally. When you're ready to have an adult conversation about being actual partners, you know where to find me. He didn't pack a bag, didn't kiss my forehead, didn't look back. He just walked out. I sat at the table until the chicken went cold, staring at the door like it might open again. It didn't. Around 9 that night, I called my sister. Hey, I said, voice cracking. Daniel just walked out. What? Why? She demanded. He gave me an ultimatum about Dad's money, I said. Full access or he's leaving. There was a long silence on the other end. When she spoke, her voice was hard. Then you need a lawyer. I let out a shaky laugh that didn't sound like me. Yeah, I guess I do. I know someone, she said. Estate planning specialist. She's good. Like, really good. I'll text you her info. Call her tomorrow. Don't wait. When we hung up, the house felt too big and too small at the same time. I went to bed alone that night with one thought echoing in my head. He put a price tag on our marriage. The next day I called the lawyer, and that was the beginning of the end, for our marriage and for Daniel's illusion that my father's legacy was his to claim. The lawyer's office was in one of those old brick buildings downtown that look like they've seen 100 different kinds of heartbreak. 3rd floor, wood paneling, diplomas in thick frames. The air smelled like paper and coffee and quiet judgment. The lawyer, Michael Grayson, was older, silver hair, navy suit that fit too well to be off the rack. He had the kind of face that made you feel like he'd heard every story and wasn't impressed by any of them. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Ms. Pierce, please sit. I handed over the folder I'd brought. Account statements. The will. Dad's handwritten letter to my sister and me. Michael flipped through everything without interrupting, eyes moving fast, but methodically. When I finished explaining what Daniel had said, add me to the account or I'm leaving, Michael leaned back in his leather chair and folded his hands. Can I be blunt with you? He asked. Please, I said. My voice sounded small even to me. Your husband just told you exactly who he is, Michael said. He values that money more than your marriage. That's what an ultimatum means. Believe him. My throat tightened. I think I'm starting to. Good, he replied, because here's what we're going to do, and we're going to do it fast. He pulled a yellow legal pad toward him and started writing. Irrevocable trust, he said. We transfer the entire inheritance into the trust. You are the primary beneficiary. But here's the crucial part. He tapped his pen on the page. We write the trust so that spouses are explicitly, specifically excluded from any claim to the assets, now or in the future. He files for divorce tomorrow or 10 years from now. It won't matter. That money is completely protected. Can't be touched, can't be divided, can't be claimed as marital property. Not by him, not by any future spouse. Ever. Something in my chest unclenched and clenched at the same time. That sounds final, I said. It is final, he replied. That's the point. Once it's irrevocable, it's locked. Even you can't dissolve it. That makes it bulletproof in court. You said your father worked his entire life for this? I nodded. He started that company in a garage. Then you are not hiding money, Michael said. You're protecting his legacy from someone who just tried to leverage your marriage for access. That's not greed, that's prudence. I thought about Daniel at the table, eyes cold, saying, "Add me to the account or I'm leaving." How fast can we set this up? I asked. Draft by the end of the week, he said. You review and sign early next week. We transfer the assets immediately after. Once it's done, it's done. I stared at the legal pad, at the cage we were about to build around my father's life's work. Do it, I said quietly. Michael gave a small, approving nod. Smart woman. Your father would be proud. Daniel didn't come home that night, or the one after. Instead, he texted, Daniel, have you calmed down? Ready to talk about this like adults? I stared at the message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the screen. Me. My answer is still no. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, came back. Daniel, I'm serious, Nat. This is a deal breaker. I won't stay in a marriage where I'm treated like I can't be trusted. I leaned back against the couch. The TV was on mute, flickering images over a room that suddenly looked like a stage set I'd been forced to walk off. Me. You gave me an ultimatum. You threatened to end our marriage if I didn't give you access to my inheritance. I'm taking you at your word. There was a longer pause this time. Daniel, okay, that's it then. You'd really let me walk away over money? I stared at the question, at the irony. Me. You're the one walking away over money, not me. He didn't respond. For the first time since the funeral, the house felt truly bone-deep quiet. The next few days blurred, work, sleep, crying in the shower so my coworkers wouldn't see the puffiness under my makeup, checking my phone and hating myself for checking my phone. Michael's office called on Thursday. The draft is ready, his paralegal said. Can you come in tomorrow at 3 to review and sign? My hands were shaking when I said yes. The trust was 60-something pages of dense legal language, defined terms, contingencies, and clauses. Michael walked me through it piece by piece. This section, he said, pointing at a block of text, explicitly states that spouses, current or future, have no right to these assets. Inheritance remains separate property, held in trust, outside the marital estate. This language? He flipped to another page. This is what will make any lawyer representing your husband go pale. I snorted, a short, humorless sound. That almost makes it worth it. Almost, he agreed. When I signed, my hand hovered for a moment above the line. It felt like a second funeral, this time for the version of my marriage I thought I had. But I signed. Transfer instructions were sent. The $823,000 moved from my account into something bigger and colder and safer. Dad's money wasn't in reach anymore. Not for Daniel. Not even for me without process and purpose. The night the transfer finalized, Daniel texted again. Daniel, so, have you decided to stop being stubborn? I exhaled slowly. I could still smell my dad's aftershave in my memory. Old Spice and machine oil and coffee. Me. My answer hasn't changed. He responded almost immediately. Daniel, wow. Just wow. I can't believe how selfish you are. That money is turning you into a different person. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. No, I thought. The money is showing me who you've always been. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. 3 weeks after he walked out, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Pierce? A male voice asked. This is attorney Mark Preston. I represent your husband, Daniel Pierce. He's filed a petition for divorce. I'd known it was coming. It still felt like a punch. Understood, I said, voice thin. We'll be serving you with the paperwork tomorrow, he continued. You'll want to obtain your own representation. I already have someone in mind, I said. Good, he replied. That will make this easier. Easier for who, I wondered after he hung up. The petition arrived the next day in a flat manila envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it at the kitchen counter. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. Requests, standard asset division, house equity, joint accounts, retirement, and half of what he called the marital inheritance funds. My father's name was on the page. Seeing it there, next to legal demands and case numbers, made my stomach twist. I called my sister. He wants half, I said. Half of the inheritance, half of Dad's money. She swore under her breath. Call Patricia, she said. Now. Patricia Lang's office was on the 12th floor of a glass building with too much natural light and expensive art. Divorce and sunlight. The combination felt strange. Patricia was in her late 50s. Sharp bob, sharper eyes, dark gray power suit. Her handshake was firm, and she didn't waste time. So, she said, spreading the divorce petition across her desk, your husband wants half of the inheritance. Yes, I said, but it's in a trust now, irrevocable, with spousal exclusions. She scanned the petition, then something like amusement flickered across her face. Oh, this is going to be fun, she murmured. I blinked. Fun? She tapped the document with a manicured nail. He hired a bargain basement lawyer, sloppy formatting, typos. This reads like a template someone filled in on their lunch break. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Is that good? It is for you, she said. We'll file a response. We'll treat the marital assets fairly. House equity, joint accounts, retirement contributions per state law. But the inheritance? She smiled, slow and predatory. The inheritance is separate property, held in an irrevocable trust, explicitly excluding spouses. He has zero claim. What if they argue I hid money? I asked. Patricia shook her head. You created the trust after he issued an ultimatum and voluntarily left the marital home. You disclosed the inheritance, showed him the statements, and then protected it when he made it clear he saw it as a jackpot. That's not hiding. That's responding. If they push that angle, the timeline will bury them. The idea of burying anyone made my chest ache, but the alternative, handing Daniel my father's life's work because he decided he was entitled to it, made me feel physically sick. Okay, I said quietly. What happens next? We respond within the week, Patricia said. Then we wait. His attorney will request discovery. We'll send it. All of it. Bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns, trust documents. I want them to see every word of that spousal exclusion language. I want it highlighted. My mouth curved into something that almost resembled a smile. You sound confident. I am, she said simply. He made a very expensive mistake when he turned your grief into leverage. The law is on your side. Your job now is to stay calm, follow my lead, and not respond to any of his emotional bait. And if he escalates? I asked. He will, she said without hesitation. People like this don't like hearing no, but that's what I'm here for. Let him escalate. Every tantrum just confirms what the trust is already protecting you from. I left her office with a neat folder and a strange new feeling. Not exactly safety, but the outline of it. A future where my dad's legacy remained intact, even if my marriage didn't. That night, as I lay in bed alone, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Daniel, I talked to a lawyer. You better hope you come to your senses before this gets ugly. I stared at the message, then turned the phone face down without replying. It was already ugly. He just hadn't realized yet that he'd drawn the line himself. The settlement conference was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at 10. Patricia warned me in advance. Expect drama, she said. Your husband is not going to like what he's about to learn. She wasn't wrong. Patricia's office had a large conference room, mahogany table, tall windows, and enough polished surfaces to make you feel like you're sitting inside a judgment. Daniel arrived 5 minutes late. He walked in with his lawyer, Mark Preston, looking stressed and overworked, and, because fate has a sense of humor, Daniel's mother, Linda, trailing behind them like a storm cloud in heels. The moment I saw Linda, I knew this wasn't going to be civil. Daniel wouldn't look at me. Linda glared at me like I'd burned down her house. Patricia greeted everyone with professional warmth that carried a razor edge. We all sat. Patricia's assistant brought coffee in real china cups, too delicate for a room filled with this much anger. Mark cleared his throat, opened a worn legal pad, and began. So, regarding the trust, he started, my client believes the inheritance... Patricia raised one eyebrow. Inheritance, she repeated, given solely to Ms. Pierce by her late father. Let's use the correct term. Mark shifted. Yes, well, my client believes that these funds represent marital assets that should be subject to equitable distribution. Patricia opened her folder with a quiet, lethal precision. The trust, she said, sliding a document across the table, is irrevocable and contains a full page stating that spouses are explicitly excluded from any claim to the assets. The inheritance never entered the marital estate. Legally, spiritually, practically, it was not Daniel's. Linda made a disgusted noise. Daniel finally looked up, his jaw tightening. Mark attempted one last weak push. We'd argue the trust was created to defraud my client of marital rights. Patricia didn't even blink. You could make that argument, she said, and you would lose. Spectacularly. The trust was established. After your client issued an ultimatum, give him access or he'd leave, and then he voluntarily abandoned the marital home for 3 weeks. Ms. Pierce was protecting inherited funds her husband was attempting to leverage. Daniel shot forward in his seat. That's not fair. The money was supposed to be ours. We're married. I kept my voice quiet. You filed for divorce, Daniel. He shook his head, eyes flashing. Because you refused to trust me. Because you gave me an ultimatum over money my father left me, I corrected softly. He glared. You don't get to twist the narrative. Before I could speak, Linda leaned forward, face tight with anger. You've always been selfish, she snapped at me. Even when you were dating, I told Daniel you'd end up screwing him over. Patricia held up a hand. We're keeping this productive. Family attacks aren't relevant here. I breathed slowly. I refused to let Linda's venom drag me into a place I'd already crawled out of. Patricia continued, voice smooth and merciless. How about we discuss actual marital assets? The house equity, joint accounts, shared furniture, what Daniel is legally entitled to. The trust remains off the table, permanently. Mark looked at Daniel, silently urging him to accept reality. Daniel looked furious. This is ridiculous, he said. She's hiding money. She protected an inheritance from someone threatening to leave her over it, Patricia corrected. There's a difference. Daniel slammed a hand on the table. I want the house. Patricia remained composed. The house has approximately $118,000 in equity. Daniel is entitled to half. That's $59,000. No, Daniel said sharply. I don't want half. I want the whole house. Patricia folded her hands. So you're demanding Ms. Pierce buy you out or be forced to sell? Yes, he growled. Exactly. I took a slow breath. I'll buy you out. He blinked. He had expected a fight, a breakdown, a panic, not calm acceptance. You'll give me $59,000, he asked. That's your legal share, I said. He sputtered for a second, then regrouped. Fine, and I want spousal support. Patricia clicked her pen. On what basis Daniel is employed? Part-time, he argued. I only make $28,000. She makes over $90,000. It's unfair. Patricia leaned forward. You choose to work part-time. You're fully capable of full-time employment. Courts don't subsidize lifestyle choices. Mark looked pained. We could argue rehabilitative support. Yes, Patricia agreed. You could. And spend $5,000 in attorney fees to maybe get $12,000 total. A brilliant use of funds. Daniel's eyes darted, calculating. He realized he was losing ground. Linda whispered something angrily to him. His face flushed darker. Then he tried a new tactic. Fine. Then he... Patricia raised a hand. She. Please remember you're discussing your wife, not a male client. Daniel swallowed, corrected himself. Fine. Then she should pay my legal fees. I stared at him. Daniel, you received almost $1 million of value from my father's work. You had no rights to it then, and you have no rights to it now. Asking me to pay for your lawyer is not negotiation, it's entitlement. His jaw flexed. You owe me, after everything. I shook my head. I owe you half of what the law says. That's it. The negotiation dragged for 3 hours. Daniel produced a list of things he needed. My living room sectional, the bedroom set my grandmother gave me, my TV, my collection of rare books from my father, even my car. No, I said to each one, refusing to budge. You're stealing from me, he yelled. Requesting items you have no legal right to after filing for divorce, Patricia said calmly, is closer to attempted theft. By the time the agreement was finally drafted, Daniel was vibrating with rage. He would receive $59,000 for his half of the house equity. He would keep his Honda. He would get half the shared furniture we bought together. No spousal support. Each of us paid our own legal fees. We split credit card debt 50-50. He signed the papers with a stiff, shaking hand. Then he looked up at me, eyes full of something venomous. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. I met his gaze without flinching. I really don't think I will. He stood abruptly and stormed out of the room, Linda scrambling after him, hissing curses under her breath. When they were gone, Patricia leaned back in her chair and let out a long exhale. Well, she said, I have seen worse, but not often. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Is it over? I asked. For now, she said, but men like your husband usually try something else. Be ready. I nodded. She wasn't wrong. The legal battle had ended, but the emotional one was just beginning. Because Daniel wasn't done trying to get what he thought the world owed him, and he was about to escalate in ways I hadn't even imagined. The divorce paperwork was barely dry when Daniel began his next phase, reputation destruction. It started subtly. Mutual friends texted me things like, "Hey, Daniel's saying you hid money from him? He told us you manipulated the legal system to cheat him. He said you're greedy now." At first, I tried explaining. Then I stopped. Anyone who believed him without asking me directly wasn't someone I needed in my life. 4 friends drifted away. People I thought cared about me. Turns out they cared more about the drama. But that was only the warm-up. A week later, I came home to find an envelope shoved under my door. Not mailed. Hand-delivered. My stomach tightened. Inside was a handwritten invoice on notebook paper. $14,500 for home improvements he claimed he personally funded over the course of our marriage. The handwriting was rushed and angry. Letters pressed so hard they almost tore through the paper. I took a photo, sent it to Patricia. She called me within minutes. "This is harassment," she said. "I'll send a cease and desist letter to him and his attorney first thing tomorrow." "Thank you," I murmured. She paused, her tone softening. "Don't engage with him, Natalie. Not at all. This is the part where unstable people flail." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Daniel's texts kept coming, each one more unhinged than the last. "Daniel, you destroyed everything. Hope you're happy." "Daniel, you're going to regret what you did to me." "Daniel, everyone knows what kind of person you really are." "Daniel, you think you can just move on? Watch me." By the 4th message, I blocked the number. 2 days later, he texted me from another new number. Then another. Then another. I blocked each one without replying. But then things took a darker turn. One afternoon, my boss called me into his office. When I stepped inside, he closed the door gently. "Natalie, your ex-husband's mother called the main office line," he said. "She somehow got my extension." My stomach dropped. "Oh my God." "She said you were hiding money from Daniel and that there might be an investigation," he said carefully. "Now, I told her not to call again and hung up, but I wanted you to know." Anger flushed through my body, hot and trembling. "I am so sorry," I said. "This shouldn't involve work." He shook his head. "Don't apologize. You're a model employee. If she calls again, we'll document it and take appropriate action. You're safe here." It was one of the few times since the divorce began that I felt genuinely supported. I walked out of his office with my chest tight and my hands trembling. Daniel wasn't just trying to hurt me emotionally now. He was trying to jeopardize my livelihood. Patricia sent formal cease and desist to both Daniel and his mother the same day. Legal wording about harassment, defamation, and consequences. It bought a week of silence. Only a week. The next blow came out of nowhere. Daniel filed a motion to reopen the divorce. Grounds? He'd signed the settlement under emotional duress. He didn't fully understand the terms. And, of course, he believed there were undisclosed marital assets, specifically the trust. Patricia called me the moment the motion hit her inbox. "Do not panic," she said almost cheerfully. "This is a desperation play. He has nothing, but we'll crush this swiftly." "Do you think he'll win?" I whispered. "No," she said firmly. "In fact, the judge is going to be furious with him for wasting the court's time." She told me to meet her at the courthouse the following Tuesday. The courtroom was cold. Everything echoed. Daniel sat at the table behind his new lawyer, a man named Richard Hanlon, wearing an expensive suit and carrying the kind of leather briefcase that screamed billable hours. Daniel avoided my eyes. His leg was bouncing nonstop under the table. The judge, middle-aged, glasses perched low, looked irritable before anything even started. Richard stood, smoothing his tie dramatically. "Your Honor, my client signed the settlement under coercion. Moreover, the trust established during separation contained assets that should have been subject to equitable—" Patricia rose before he could finish. "Your Honor, may I present a timeline?" The judge gestured. "Proceed." Patricia stepped forward, voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. She laid it all out. Daniel issued an ultimatum demanding full access to the inheritance. Daniel voluntarily left the marital home. The inheritance was clearly disclosed and not hidden. The trust was created after Daniel threatened divorce and entirely within Natalie's legal rights. All documents, including the spousal exclusion, were provided during discovery. Daniel reviewed and signed the settlement agreement with legal counsel. Then she placed the trust documents on the judge's bench. The judge skimmed the highlighted sections: explicit spousal exclusion, irrevocable structure, inheritance classification. When he looked up at Daniel, his expression could have frozen water. "Mr. Pierce," he said, "you were aware of this inheritance when you filed for divorce, correct?" Daniel swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor, but—" "And you had legal representation during negotiations?" "Yes, but my lawyer didn't—" "Did you sign the settlement willingly?" Daniel hesitated. I signed it, but I didn't understand. That, the judge said sharply, is not fraud. That is regret. The courtroom stayed so silent I could hear Daniel's uneven breathing. The judge continued. Your motion is denied. The settlement stands exactly as signed. Daniel's shoulders sagged. But the judge wasn't done. And let me be exceedingly clear, he said, staring Daniel down. If you file additional motions without new evidence of actual coercion or fraud, I will consider sanctions. That means paying Ms. Pierce's legal fees and possibly additional penalties. Do you understand? Daniel's face turned red. Yes, he muttered. We're done here, the judge said. The gavel hit the wood like a final heartbeat. Outside the courtroom, Daniel tried to come toward me. Both attorneys moved in unison to block him. He raised his voice anyway. You took everything, he shouted across the hallway, face twisted with hate. I felt something shift inside me then. Something that had been broken, now snapping cleanly back into alignment. I took what was legally mine, I said quietly. You walked away. You filed. You don't get to be angry about consequences now. He shook his head, eyes shiny with rage. I loved you. That wasn't love, I said. That was leverage. Patricia tugged my arm lightly. Don't engage, she murmured. He's done. Let him live with it. We walked away, the sound of Daniel's breathing ragged behind us. And for the first time in months, I felt distance, real, irrevocable distance, between me and the man who once shared my life. Life after the court ruling felt eerily quiet, the kind of quiet a room holds after someone finishes screaming in it. Daniel didn't contact me directly anymore, not after the judge's warning about sanctions. But silence didn't mean peace. The gossip pipeline lit up almost immediately. A mutual friend messaged me. Daniel says you financially ruined him. Another wrote, he told us you hid the inheritance and tricked the judge. The worst one came from someone I'd known since college. He says you destroyed his life. Is that true? I didn't explain myself. Not anymore. Anyone who needed my side had already asked. Anyone who didn't ask didn't matter. I lost 4 or 5 acquaintances. It hurt, but only briefly. I was done protecting people who wouldn't extend me the same grace. Then came Daniel's spiral. It unfolded with the inevitability of a slow-motion accident. You see it coming, you can't stop it, and you watch every terrible detail anyway. He burned through his $59,000 settlement in under 4 months. 4! I heard about it in pieces. A brand new Nissan Pathfinder he didn't need. Expensive furniture for his apartment. A 10-day trip to Aruba with a friend. Helping his mother catch up on bills. Eating out constantly, drinking like every night was Friday. The spending had a frantic quality, the kind of desperation people show when trying to fill holes that can't be filled with purchases. A mutual friend sent a message one night. He's already out of money. I stared at the text for a long time. Not with satisfaction, not with spite. Just a deep, quiet exhaustion. He had wanted my father's inheritance because he thought it would save him. He spent his settlement proving exactly why he never should have had access. With the money gone, reality hit him hard. He tried to apply for a personal loan. The bank called me to verify his employment and income. My phone buzzed during lunch at work. Ms. Pierce, this is Linda from Valley Community Bank. Daniel Pierce listed you as a reference. He shouldn't have done that, I said immediately. I'm not comfortable providing a reference for my ex-husband. The silence on the other end was long. Then the woman spoke gently. I understand, thank you. The loan was denied. He ended up selling the new SUV. At a loss, of course. Then he moved back in with his mother. For real this time. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. But late at night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help thinking, this is what he tried to drag me into. This was almost my life, too. His part-time bookkeeping job wasn't enough to support himself. He tried to get more hours, but the firm had already hired full-time staff. So Daniel took another job, then another. 2 part-time jobs. No stability, no savings, no plan. He was still telling anyone who'd listen that I'd financially annihilated him. It was easier to blame me than to face himself. Meanwhile, quietly, my life began to stitch itself back together. I refinanced the house at 2.8%, lowering the payments. I repainted the living room, updated the furniture, turned the spare bedroom into a real home office. There was something deeply healing about reclaiming the space. Not our home anymore, but mine. A place that didn't hold his shadow in every corner. I refinished the kitchen cabinets myself over 3 weekends. The same kitchen he once insisted needed a $30,000 remodel from my inheritance. While painting, I caught myself laughing under my breath. The irony wasn't lost on me. The trust was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Growing. Steady, conservative returns. the kind of growth my father always believed in. My sister and I used a portion of the dividend income to expand the scholarship fund in Dad's name. We doubled the number of engineering scholarships offered to local students. Dad would have loved that. His legacy helping young people build something real. Every time I signed the scholarship approval forms, I felt something warm settle in my chest. A quiet affirmation. This is where the money belongs. Not in Daniel's hands, not in a remodel or luxury car, but here, helping someone worthy, honoring my father. Work was steady. I poured myself into new projects, and months later, I was promoted. Higher salary, more responsibility. And for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely excited about something. When the raise kicked in, I started making extra mortgage payments. At this rate, I'd have the house paid off in 8 years instead of 25. Freedom. Real, tangible freedom. Built brick by brick, payment by payment. Not everyone in my life understood my refusal to help Daniel. Some mutual friends pushed. You have the money. He doesn't. He's struggling. Just help him get back on his feet. Be the bigger person. The refrain was exhausting. I tried explaining the trust, the legal process, the ultimatum, the harassment, the attempted character assassination. They didn't want to hear it, so I stopped explaining and started cutting. Anyone who pushed me more than once got a firm, "No, stop asking." If they didn't stop, I removed them from my life. Real friends don't guilt you into saving the person who tried to drown you. The quiet that followed wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. And for the first time in months, I realized something. Daniel had taken almost everything he could from me, my trust, my stability, my peace of mind, but he couldn't touch the thing that mattered most. My father's legacy, my future, my sense of self. He had tried to take control of my life. Instead, he'd given me back control of my own boundaries. And though I didn't know it yet, peace wasn't the final chapter. Because something else, something unexpected, gentle, and healing, was about to enter my life next. 14 months after the divorce was finalized, I woke up one morning and realized I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. The house felt like mine in a way it never had before. Quiet mornings, sunlight pouring over the new living room I'd painted myself, coffee that tasted different because I wasn't drinking it while bracing for someone else's mood. Sometimes healing doesn't look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like peace that doesn't demand anything from you. Around this time, I met someone. His name was Aaron Blake, a high school math teacher, calm, thoughtful, the kind of man who measures twice and speaks once. We met at a community volunteer event. He was organizing donated laptops. I was helping label boxes. He made me laugh without trying. He listened more than he talked. He never bragged. He never postured. And he had absolutely no idea who I was or what I'd been through. We started getting coffee, walking after work, slow, steady conversations that felt gentle in a way I hadn't expected. Eventually, I told him the basics about the divorce. Nothing detailed, just what felt necessary. He didn't blink or pry. Instead, he asked one simple, quiet question. He gave you an ultimatum about your father's inheritance? His eyebrow lifted slightly. What did he expect would happen? I blinked at him. Because for the first time, someone reacted exactly how I wish people would react. Not with pity, not with judgment, just basic logic. And then he moved on. He didn't ask how much the inheritance was, didn't hint about finances, didn't comment on the house, didn't ask about the trust. In fact, on our third date, he insisted on paying, even though he didn't make as much as I did. I invited you, he said simply, so I'll take care of it. It wasn't about money. It was about intention, about balance, about partnership without entitlement. It felt like breathing clean air after months of smoke. In the middle of this quiet, growing steadiness, Daniel tried one last time to claw his way back into my life. A text came from an unknown number. Daniel, just want you to know I'm doing great. Better than ever. Never needed your money anyway. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because it hurt, because it didn't. Patricia had warned me about this phase months earlier. Eventually, unstable exes send a, "Look, I'm thriving" message. It's bait. Don't take it. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. I went back to what I was doing, chopping vegetables for dinner, music playing softly in the background. And that was the moment I realized I was really, truly free. The scholarship fund in Dad's name continued to grow. We expanded from 2 scholarships to 4. Students wrote thank you letters that made me cry in the best way. Letters about dreams they could now chase. Degrees they could now afford. Families they hoped to lift out of the same kind of struggle my dad had grown up with. Every letter felt like a small echo of him, a way to keep his kindness alive. The trust wasn't just about money anymore, it was about purpose. And Daniel had taught me, brutally and clearly, how important it was to protect that purpose. One night, months into seeing Aaron, I told him something I hadn't admitted out loud before. You know, I said softly, I think Daniel leaving might have been the best thing that ever happened to me. Aaron didn't give me platitudes, didn't tell me everything happens for a reason. He just nodded and squeezed my hand. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, he said, deadpan. I burst out laughing, real, full laughter I hadn't felt in years. And in that moment, I realized something important. The ultimatum Daniel gave me wasn't a threat, it was a gift. He'd shown me who he was before we had kids, before things got more complicated, before he could sink deeper claws into my life. He thought I'd cave. He thought I'd choose him over myself, over my boundaries, over my father's legacy. He miscalculated. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's this. When someone shows you they're willing to end your relationship over money they didn't earn, don't argue. Don't negotiate. Don't beg them to stay. Let them go. Let the ultimatum do its job. The right person will never demand your inheritance. The right person won't measure love by access to your bank account. The right person won't issue ultimatums at all. The right person will sit across from you at a quiet dinner table, ask about your day, offer you a piece of bread from their plate, and never once wonder how much you're worth on paper. Daniel showed me exactly who he was, but leaving him and choosing myself showed me exactly who I am. And that's a gift I'll never regret.